A warning, this podcast contains content some listeners may find confronting or distressing. Listener discretion is advised.
9 podcasts.
Hi, this is Gavin Neil. I'm unable to take your call right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Okay, well, it's our last day up in North Queensland looking into this story. We know that Gavin Neale, the lead detective on that case, obviously a lot of people heavily critical of how he went about it. He lives here in Ayr, where we are right now. It's about 14, 15 k's south of Alva Beach. We need to get in contact with him. We've tried repeatedly to get onto him. We'll go pay him a visit, and hopefully he's there and he's happy to have a chat and give his side to this very complicated story. I really can't conduct this investigation properly without hearing from the lead detective on this case, Gavin Neale. To say there's been criticism of how he conducted the Alva Beach investigation is quite the understatement. We've heard that criticism already from Gavin's former officer colleague, Justin Luke, and the Davy family.
Gavin Neale should not have been judge and jury on that night.
It seems like an opinion was formed very quickly, and it just seems like everything had to fit into that opinion.
We just had to find Gavin to get his response to that. Turns out, though, we opened up a whole other can of worms. I did manage to track Gavin down, and it's created an extraordinary to and fro, pitting two people against each other, both who've dedicated their lives to the law, the career cop and the career lawyer.
There's no doubt he was frightened, but there's also no corroborating evidence.
Everything was there in the telephone calls. Because we didn't charge him then, didn't mean we couldn't charge him.
He decided that night that it was self-defence as far as we can tell.
Well, there's no evidence. We don't have any evidence to show one way or the other. If you tell me how you investigated better.
We think that the forensic investigation should have gone further.
This is just a snippet of what we'll get to. The opposing views of Gavin Neale, the lead detective, and Julia Jasper, the lawyer representing the Davy family. It raises a fundamental legal question. Who does a severe lack of evidence support? Should it give the benefit of the doubt to a young man who stabbed and killed 2 people? Or does it show how lacking the investigation was and support claims police never made enough of an effort to get to the truth?
We can't just go, well, this may have happened or this may have happened. We've got to be able to prove these things beyond reasonable doubt. The evidence wasn't there. I think when you roll it all out, he had a pristine case of self-defence.
It is far more complicated than drunken home invader. Far more complicated than a man's home is his castle, he has a right to defend it. It's far more complicated than that. 2 men lost their lives. We don't know why. We should be better than that now.
To be honest, I wasn't overly confident I'd get to chat to Gavin, let alone get these responses. In 2020, at the inquest, he was questioned on the stand but had nothing to say to me and the other journalists outside court.
Now, that detective was grilled for hours here at the inquest today. I can tell you the families of Tom Davy and Corey Christensen, the 2 men who died in this incident, they are upset and furious at the delayed police response. As for tomorrow, we should be...
This time, though, as you're about to hear, the now retired Gavin Neale is a lot more chatty.
So did you think you were going to charge Dean?
Oh, 100%.
Why didn't you?
Welcome back to Alva Beach, Death at the Door. This is episode 4, The Lead Detective. Okay, well, we're just pulling up to what I believe to be Gavin Neale's house now. 2-storey house here, some cars out the front as well as in the driveway, which is a good sign. Hopefully, oh, there's a dog in the front yard, so if someone does indeed live here. Another just popped his head out, so I'm just going to get out and see if Gavin's here, but also, hopefully, Gavin's happy to have a chat, but we'll see.
G'day, Gavin.
This was all pretty fortunate timing on our part. As I walked up to the gate, I spotted Gavin just outside his front door. Taking into account how little anyone has heard from him over the years, and the fact he'd just dodged or ignored my calls and texts, the last thing I was expecting was a candid, laid-back chat. How wrong I was.
Sorry, Gavin. How you going? I just tried to call Adam Hegarty. I'm a reporter. I covered the inquest back in the day. We're going to do another story on it, so I'm wondering whether you'd be happy to have a bit of a chat to us and give your account and your side for what's going on. But we're recording a podcast about it as well as doing a story.
That was my first thought, to offer Gavin the chance for a sit-down interview. But as we got talking, I figured I'd best take the opportunity while it was in front of me. He was quick to get a couple of things off his chest, actually. What became immediately clear is there's no love lost between Gavin and the officer you've already heard from, his former colleague, Justin Luke.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're happy to give me your thoughts on the matter now, because obviously people have been quite critical of how the investigation played out.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are a number of things number one thing, I think Justin Luke's an arsehole.
Why do you say that?
Oh, just because he just... I mean, there were a lot of things that happened, like the business with the knife and us having the wrong knife and all the rest of it and that.
Yep, you heard that correctly. We'll come back to this business about a second knife in a later episode, and a wild suggestion it might have been used by Dean and missed by investigators. It's a pretty outlandish claim, but it was taken seriously enough for an investigator to look into it as part of a review into the police response at Alva Beach. We've got those recordings. It's difficult to give a huge amount of weight to it, but in the interest of putting everything out there, we'll definitely come back to it. After all, it's caused a big enough stir for Gavin to mention it to me here, unprompted. As we got to chatting, to my surprise, Gavin was incredibly upfront. He didn't shy away from a thing, and you'll hear he clearly believes he didn't put a foot wrong during the investigation. But frankly, what struck me was his responses were far from confident or emphatic, in a way you might expect from a seasoned detective.
Well, just, like you sort of go, I mean, as a police officer, people bullshit to you all the time.
What I was absolutely keen to ask him about was the shocking delay in police going to Dean's home on the night.
We've called 3 times. This is not funny anymore. Like, this is not a joke. Please send someone.
It was Gavin's call to prioritise getting bail paperwork signed by a Justice of the Peace, which, as you've heard, meant police didn't get to the scene until 51 minutes after Dean's first panicked 000 call, 19 minutes after he'd stabbed them, leaving Tom and Corey dying on his front lawn, with paramedics just 100 metres up the road, unwilling to go in and save anyone without police backup.
Why did you get the bail matter attended to first before heading out to the scene that night?
Because my job on the night, so I wasn't working over the weekend. My job on the night was solely to deal with the offender in custody.
But if you're getting panicked calls over 000 and being notified about someone in danger and someone needing help, like you go to that. I'm not a police officer. I get it.
Can I suggest that if you talk to someone from the communications room, you get those things all the time. I mean, it came through as a Code 3 job. Attend to it when you can attend to it. So my job on the night was not to go and assist them with that job. My job on the night was to deal with the offender in the watch house.
But then you've got paramedics staged who could have gone in and calmed the situation, waiting for police to come and help them out. It was a stuff-up, wasn't it?
No, definitely not.
I feel like it was. Even the coroner said that. She was very critical of the response.
Yeah.
Like, that's not just me saying that.
Yeah.
One thing the coroner did rule was that response was unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
You would have done things differently, wouldn't you? Had you had your time over?
If when I walked away from that job, I was happy with what we knew at the time I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, do we?
Mm.
We don't have a crystal ball. It was a Code 3 job. And as I said, my job on the night was to deal with the offender in custody. I'd rung around. I'd made several phone calls to find a justice of the peace to sign look at my objection to bail. He said, "Come around now. We'll look after that." You know, that was, and my view was that the quickest way to get the job done. I mean, what didn't come out? There were a number of things that didn't come out during the inquest, and one of those things would be that it's a public holiday. To ring up the district duty officer and say, I want to call someone out on overtime at a quadruple time day to deal with a Code 3 job, he would have said, no way in the world.
Sorry, but that is surely a horrible failure. This tragedy wasn't prevented because it was deemed so low priority to not waste money on calling in backup on a public holiday? Wherever the responsibility for that failure lies, it is one. And I'll make that point again. The coroner agreed. How a 000 call centre and police by association kept Dean's panicked calls on a low Code 3 priority is hard to believe. You've heard those calls.
Get off my property, mate.
Caller, you've got police.
I need police now.
What address
Now,
do
they're
you
breaking
require
in.
Police.
Oi, I need police right now, they're breaking in.
I've got an injured woman with me.
Okay, so
Stay there.
where are they?
They're 2 metres away outside my front door. Just
Yeah.
please send someone, please. Please, me.
We'll delve more into the botched response and the blame game between paramedics and police in due course. Last episode though, I played for you Dean's interview from that night at Ayr Police Station with Justin Luke and Gavin Neale.
Okay, this is a record of interview between myself, Detective Sergeant Gavin Neil, and Dean Webber.
And it's on the topic of Dean that things get very interesting. It turns out he did expect to charge him. We've never heard that from Gavin or police.
If you go to basically the point where we took him back to the station to be interviewed, I was of the belief that that sort of 2 or 3 hours time he'd be charged with 2 counts of murder.
Well, Justin would dispute that. He thinks that he really had to push for that interview of Dean, and that you sort of made up your mind early.
That is an absolute lie. He seems to have an agenda.
So did you think you were going to charge Dean?
Oh, 100%.
Why didn't you?
Because as everything went along, and there were things that he said that I sort of questioned and sort of said, and I think it, well, just, like you sort of go, I mean, as a police officer, people bullshit to you all the time. It's
Well, it was just hours after the fact too, so...
Yeah,
well,
but it was probably something that as it went on, as the investigation went on from that morning, things that he said that you sort of went, oh, is that right, is that wrong? Everything was there in the telephone calls, and it was.
But did the forensics need to be more closely examined before you made a decision not to charge Dean?
Well, he could. I mean, because we didn't charge him then, didn't mean we couldn't charge him. I mean, murderers get out on bail. It doesn't happen very often, but they do.
So, essentially what Gavin is saying here is they could have charged Dean later once forensics were gathered in time. But they didn't, because the evidence didn't exist to do so. But on the flip side of that, that's the issue Tom and Corey's families, their lawyers, and even former acting sergeant Justin Luke have with the investigation. The unknowns police never got to the bottom of. Going back to what we heard in the last episode, in his police station interview, Dean said 3 men all forced their way inside his house in a V formation. But we know Louis claims he never went in the house, and the DNA evidence only places, beyond doubt, Tom inside. Despite that, with so many drunk and unreliable accounts on the night, police considered Dean's version of events as the most reliable. But really, with contradicting forensics, we really still don't know for sure what happened. So that's why I asked Gavin here repeatedly about that. So you're telling me when we're talking about exactly what happened in that house and whether Dean has something to answer for, even though you can't be certain who attacked first, you think it was self-defence regardless?
Well, there's no evidence. We don't have any evidence to show one way or the other.
That's an issue, isn't it?
Sorry?
Well, does that warrant a better investigation then if we don't have the evidence?
Well, you tell me how you investigated better.
Well, I mean, you're the officer. Could you have done something differently in that situation to find out who attacked first?
No. Well,
would it matter in your eyes?
Well, I mean, if you throw a whole different set of circumstances into it, you know, I mean, perhaps it could have come out differently. But how do you've got two deceased people, you've got one person that gives a version that basically can't be discarded, and everything he said pretty much checks out.
Pretty much?
Well, it checks out. It does. You tell me at one point there that came out where you can say that Dean Webber has lied.
I don't have an opinion on the matter, but if you ask the Davies and their lawyers, they'll dispute.
Granted.
He said 3 people entered in a V formation. The Davies and the Christensen's lawyers argue that Corey never entered. If you talk to the Davies, they see what they believe are defensive wounds to Tom's hands as if he put himself up to protect himself. So, jumping in here for a moment, these defensive wounds have been mentioned to us by Justin Luke, the police officer, in a previous episode, and they're injuries the Davies noticed when, sadly, they went to view Tom's body. While Corey suffered a single deadly stab wound to the heart, when it comes to Tom, he had 6 distinct knife wounds, 2 to his chest, and also to his cheek, back of his neck, and several cuts and grazes to his hands and forearms. It's also very important to note, Tom also had bruising on his knuckles. There's no doubt he was in a scuffle with Dean. But the crucial unknown is, did Tom go in to attack Dean, or was he retaliating after Corey was stabbed? It's a question even now the lead detective can't answer with any certainty. They're convinced that they were going in just to help Candace and then were attacked by Dean first, stabbed in the heart, slashed across the face, defensive wounds to the hands. Is that in your eyes still self-defence?
Well, as I said, after reviewing everything, I was more than satisfied that it was self-defence.
Even in that scenario that I've just mentioned?
The issue is that we can't just go, well, this may have happened or this may have happened. We've got to be able to prove these things beyond reasonable doubt. You tell me how we can do that. It's his house. You know, he's a skinny little 18-year-old. You've got 3 large men outside his house. 2 large men come inside his house.
You expect these days with a scene as chaotic as that one, and it's big, it's not just inside the house, it's outside the house as well, that it would take a long time for that scene to be processed. And
this is the Davy family's lawyer again, Julia Jasper. If you ask her, the investigation failed everyone because to this day, no one knows exactly what happened. If Corey didn't go inside and Tom retaliated, that, in her legal opinion, changes everything. And, she says, that's why the forensic evidence should have been considered properly.
You know, certainly that in other murder cases that I've been involved with, that the volume of forensic evidence is significantly higher than what we see here. But we can't know the conversations that were had at the crime scene that night. We can only know that our opinion from looking at what we do have is that we think that the forensic investigation should have gone further.
It doesn't happen very often, but they do. You know.
But I guess the question is that he was never in the end charged, and there are still some questions that even lawyers have about what actually went down and what transpired in that house, some discrepancies in stories and accounts. I mean, why wasn't he ever charged while those things were being pieced together?
Well, because the evidence wasn't there. And he had, I mean, I think when you roll it all out, he had a pristine case of self-defence.
Well, the Davies and Christensens obviously would argue against that.
Yeah.
They thought they were just going in to
help Candace, and they don't think Tom and Corey attacked Dean first, and they don't even believe that necessarily Corey was inside the house at the time. So do you think they attacked Dean first?
Well, they broke into his house.
Is that enough to stab 2 people to death if they didn't attack him?
Well, I think you've got to look at the whole thing from he's woken up in the middle of the night from he's basically woken up in the middle of the night from his sleep by Candace. And it's what Candace tells him and so forth, you know. I mean, she's got an injury consistent with grievous bodily harm.
It's technical. It's why the Christensen and Davy families have been up against it trying to plead their case for 7 years. If it was to be looked at again, they're aware the system could come to the same conclusion. All they want is a proper, in-depth investigation, something Julia strongly believes never happened.
He decided that night that it was self-defence as far as we can tell. So prior to when he speaks to Dean Webber early the next day and they do the scene visit, it's very, very clear, and from his own version, that he had determined that it was self-defence. That early decision determined how the crime scene was treated. It was not a typical police interview when they took Dean Webber around the house. It wasn't an investigative interview, it was a witness.
Julia's just mentioned something I haven't played for you yet. I will now. She's describing a scene walkthrough with Dean at his house. It happens just a day after the fatal stabbings and the police station interview.
Dean Webber. Now, just for the purpose of voice identification, I'll just get everyone to state their full name. Just firstly, you, Dean.
Yep, Dean Joseph Webber.
Now, this time, Dean's lawyered up.
Now, we also have here Barrister Harvey Walters and Mr Don Armott, solicitor. I'll just get them to state their names for the record.
This is all being filmed for evidence. It's a grainy body cam. Dean's distraught, and he's still visibly injured. His leg was hurt during the scuffle, so he's walking with a limp here as he leads police and the lawyers into the living room from the backyard. As they reach and stand in front of the sliding door and kitchen bench, Dean gets emotional the moment the first question's asked.
Okay, you all right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, as I said, if we can start from the beginning. Now, you told me earlier that you'd arrived home from having dinner, drinks, and watching the football with friends.
Yes, that is correct.
And so, what time did you arrive home?
Oh, probably about 10:30, maybe a bit earlier, around that time.
Okay. And so, what happened from when you arrived home?
I came through the door, and this is where I was sleeping. I was here on this couch.
On the couch, yep.
And then I was woken up during the night, and there was a lady standing at my door. And I was like, got up, woke up, opened the door a little bit, and she was like, "You need to help me. Some people, these blokes have thrown me out of a buggy. They're watching me now. Please help me.
This walkthrough goes for just over half an hour. Much of it is Dean re-explaining the events we've heard already through 000 calls and his interview at the police station. We've heard about the threats Dean says were made. Here, though, he really spells out to police that what Candace was saying, coupled with those threats, is why he was so frightened.
That's when they made their first approach, and I was like, Candace was like, "Oh, don't let them in, they're bad people. Help me, call the police. I don't care what you do, call ambulance, police, just help me." And they were like, "Oh, where are you?" And they started making threats. And I was like, leave the property, Okay. That's the word.
And did you recognise any of those people?
I didn't recognise the voice, although they were like, deep, threatening voices.
How was?
And that's when I first got scared. Like, I was fearful. Like, these blokes, what are their intentions? They've just thrown her out of a buggy. She just told me she'd been thrown out of a buggy. So they injured her, and they're, trying to get in. What are they trying to do? So I was really scared at that point. I didn't know what to do. Like, yeah.
And so you said that Candace had said to you in relation to they've thrown me from the buggy.
Yeah, she said they were bad people.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, after what they'd done to her, I didn't want to imagine what they could have done to both of us. They were like...
You do get the sense here, as Dean tearfully defends his actions, that he's still worried he's in serious trouble with police. But the claim is, Detective Neale had already made up his mind that it was self-defence. Before forensics were properly gathered and considered, and in the absence of that, this would still be the last time Dean was questioned.
And I can't remember, but I remember being here with Candace, back over there, and then them, he's going at the door. And I was, when the first male individual got the door unlocked, ripped it up over the latch and slid it open, I remember, I've got you fucking now. And I was standing there and the three came in and just pummeled me. And I've never been so scared in my life. I thought they were going to kill me. I didn't know what to do. They came and grabbed me. That's when I was scared I was going to die. There was going to be two of us.
Okay, now there was a knife involved. When did that first?
It was after the first encounter. Yep. I was like, something's not right. These people want something and it's not valuables, it's us. They wanted us. And that's when, I don't know what happened here, but I did what I could to make sure me and Candace survived because I was fearful of my life. I didn't want to die that night. I didn't want to go.
So at what point did you pick up the knife?
When they first grabbed me. That's when I did it. Just reflexes, Yeah, I just wanted it to stop. I just wanted it all to end because I was.
So what do you recall of happening once they've grabbed you?
I just remember just arms, legs, everything, and then I was flipped 180. I went from standing up to on my head, and they just thrown me down right against. I think I don't know where I've hit my leg. It was on the chair or the bench, but yeah, and that's when I must have injured them. And once I was on the ground, incapacitated, that's when they left.
All right. So how long do you estimate that they were inside for?
I don't know.
Don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
Can you say how many of them there was that
There
was actually
three entered the door in one either side of the first one, and I just remember the first male grabbed me, and that's when everything went down.
Right. Can you describe him?
I don't know what they looked like. It was dark. It was pitch black.
Pitch black. Okay.
I don't know.
You said you had the knife at that point during the scuffle.
Yeah.
What were you doing with the knife?
I don't know. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know whether I was trying to push them off or what, but it was in my left hand. I don't know. I don't know what I did.
Dean makes a compelling case here for self-defence. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But it also shows how much police relied on Dean's emotional account. Because what you're hearing here at the same time is he can't answer some questions about exactly what went down. And that right there is why lawyers like Julia have serious questions about how this investigation was conducted.
We should be better than that now. We're not operating in an environment that doesn't have advanced science. We have highly trained police officers who have access to the best forensic science in the world. We should know more than we know. And we have a system that's set up to protect rights, but also to, as far as the evidence allows gets to the truth. It hasn't worked.
The recorded walkthrough ends with Dean again being asked to specify what threats were being made before he stabbed Tom and Corey. Dean struggles to remember in detail.
Okay.
You can't elaborate on the threats anymore, eh? Not particularise any particular threats?
What more of a threat is 3 blokes coming and grabbing you?
Oh, sorry, I've just been in relation to when they were outside when they were initially verbally.
I can't remember words. Like there's blanks everywhere. I just don't want to remember.
No, you're right. Dean, when the door initially opened up, when they said that they freed it up, did they say anything specific to you then?
Only it was something along the lines of bingo, I've gotcha, or bingo, I've fucking gotcha. Yeah, it was that whole space of time. It's a blur. I can't remember.
That's right.
I really wish I could.
Is there anything further you'd like to tell us in relation to this incident?
I didn't know what to do. Our lives were on the line, man. I felt like Candace and I were not going to be walking out that door alive. We stood no chance against them.
Yeah, the Davies and the Christensen's have a lot of opinions about how that investigation went down that night, and a lot of unanswered
they've
questions.
Lost someone, and it's a terrible situation, and it's.
Do you think Dean has something to answer for? Do you think there are questions that he still needs to be grilled about?
Look, it's a situation. There are no winners. There are no winners out of the whole case. I didn't think there was sufficient evidence for him to be charged. The coroner looked at it and she agreed.
It's quite the precedent, though, to stab and kill 2 people, but then never have to give evidence about it, never have to answer lingering questions so that families have closure and an understanding.
And I can appreciate their side of things. He was interviewed, he was freely interviewed, he answered questions. I don't think the record can be set any straighter than what it is. That's my view. And look, and I can appreciate the position that the Davies family are in. Is there anything that you think has changed your point of view, or that changes any point of view that's come out of it?
I try not to form an opinion. I feel really, really deeply sorry for most people involved in it. A lot of people I've spoken to already are in tears when they speak about it, and that's not just the families.
Yeah.
It sets a crazy precedent, and that's not just me saying that. I think it's an important story, not just to give closure to the families and to provide families with answers that they should get in a justice process, but I think broadly, our listeners and our viewers need to look at this as something that sets a precedent legally in this country. And it has always been a story that's stayed with me as something that hasn't been properly looked at and finalised. You might think differently, but that's why I'm here. I think it all needs to put out there as a whole, though. So the legal fraternity, the public, and everyone involved in this case has it all there, and then feel like everyone's been heard, because there's a lot of pain that's been felt, I think.
Oh, look, and as I said, the Davies and the Christensens, when you lose someone, it's a terrible thing.
It's also having trust in police and the legal system as well, though.
Yeah.
That's really, really paramount to what we're doing here.
Yeah, it's, look, at the end of the day, the point that you can't get over is the coroner made a ruling that they died while breaking into Dean's house.
Obviously, though, that is disputed. We had lawyers storm out of that inquest saying that it was handled poorly, so I think there's a lot more that still needs to be played out when it comes to that. But look, Gavin, I'm going to leave you to it. I appreciate the chat here, I really do. Thank you for being open.
All right.
Thank you.
All
right. Thank you. Well, I mean, that took some effort, tracking Gavin down and speaking to him. Those are some questions I've been wanting to ask that man for a very, very long time. When we tried to speak to him outside the inquest a few years back, he didn't say a word, and he was surprisingly open then about his side. But I'll tell you what, I was shocked there when he could not tell me for sure who attacked first, but nonetheless, he believes it was still self-defence. I'm no lawyer, I'm no officer. People and yourselves can make up your mind about that. I don't know.
Now, in the spirit of balance, I want to make it clear here that the coroner made some firm statements about lead detective Gavin Neale. I'll quote something here out of her findings. The decision not to charge Mr. Webber was formed within 4 days of the deaths of Mr. Christensen and Mr. Davy. Therefore, a decision was made before a complete brief of evidence had been assembled. I accept, however, that should further evidence have been obtained, that decision could have been reconsidered at any time. So essentially, what she's saying here is Detective Neale made an early call, but it's okay, because he could have changed his mind. I said at the beginning of this podcast, this case will test what you consider to be just and right. I've got no doubt some of you will be thinking, hey, you rock up on my property, regardless of your intentions, and I can stab you if I want to. But let's bring back Julia Jasper here. She says that's simply not the law. And further to that, she believes it's an unacceptable failure. We still don't know some things for sure. Why is this case so important?
2 men lost their lives. Our system doesn't deal with anything more serious than the loss of life. That's why it's so important. You know, it doesn't even matter if it's, to me, it doesn't matter if it's precedent setting or not. You know, Corey and Tom died. We don't know why. We should be better than that now.
Should Australians in general who have no skin in the game here?
Anybody could be in this position, and you would hope that if that were to happen, that this system that we know is capable of such greatness would swing into action and give us the answers that we deserve. You would hope that that's how it would work. And this is not something that's irrelevant to people. I mean, we're living in a time of, if you believe the media, incredibly and increasing violent crime. So anyone could be the victim of a crime at any time. You know, and even though I'm a defence lawyer, I'm a huge supporter of the police, They do an unbelievably difficult job. I couldn't do it. You know, and I think it's amazing what they're capable of, you know, and how hard they work and how much they care about it. And so I just think that it's disappointing when it doesn't work like that. The thing that I have found most difficult about this, and probably is part of the reason that I'm so passionate about it, is the horrifying misinformation that was in the media and online about what happened, and how these 2 wonderful men who were they were family men, hardworking. You know, Corey was a father, Tom was, you know, a beloved, never put a foot wrong, everybody loved, that they were painted as violent, abusive, drunken home invaders.
I've spoken to so many people, never heard a bad word about them.
Never heard a bad word about them, no. And then you meet their family and you can be in no doubt about what kind of men they were. And for that to be what comes up if you Google their names, you know, no, we have to put the record right. It has to be, the real story has to come out, and it is far more complicated than drunken home invader, far more complicated than a man's home is his castle, he has a right to defend it. It's far more complicated than that.
So where does all this leave 2 grieving families? For me, it's all well and good to debate what evidence, or lack thereof, should or shouldn't determine. But what it does is leave Tom and Corey's distraught parents with no closure, no concrete answers, and with no real option other than to speculate on what they think happened.
I guess the question is, Dean is considered to have acted in self-defence there because 3 men who he didn't know were on his property. What do you think Dean should have done differently in that moment?
I think if he had said there was an ambulance on the way or I've got a weapon, I think that would have changed it.
I know, they said there was a ruckus inside, but Corey never even went inside the house. And I say to myself 1,000 times, why couldn't he have stabbed him in the arm or the shoulder or just somewhere else, and he would have got away from there as quick as he could? But one clean, fatal wound to the heart, that's the part that's got me.
David Christensen, Corey's dad, knows his boy more than me, you, Gavin Neil or Julia Jasper. He's obviously biased, but he's adamant Corey just wouldn't do what's being described. If we've got two good boys, a family man in your son Corey, Tom just this nice bloke, and then Dean, up until this point, a really, really just innocent kid who's frightened, where does the blame lie here in your opinion? Because if he was scared and Corey and Tom, you don't think were there to hurt him, how did two people end up dead? How did that happen?
I'm trying to work that out. I can't put anything together that I can. I don't know. I just don't know. No, all my friends can't believe it. Everybody in the vertical can't believe it. That happened.
Because they know Corey.
Yeah. And I mean to say, as far as I know about young Webber, he was a nice kid too, eh? He was a nice kid. But that night he was just, I don't know what sent him off, eh? I don't know. Something sent that kid off.
What we have to remember, though, is Dean made panic 000 calls long before Corey was stabbed.
I know.
Do you think they should have got there well before it became violent?
Yeah, well, I think what happened too was the detectives were short-staffed that night, and they had to get a JP to sign some paperwork for him and all that. That's what he told me. So
that must infuriate you. I mean, and then even the coroner was scathing of that. I mean, regardless of how something is coded on a system and a police admin system, I mean, when you've got a kid, a 19-year-old pleading for help and terrified, surely you go to that. And I'm not a cop, but surely.
You'd head straight off to that one, wouldn't you? Yeah.
How do you deal with that as parents, though, knowing that if things were handled differently? I mean, Dean made those panic 000 calls, asking for police and paramedics to get there before Corey was stabbed. Getting there earlier would have saved Corey. There's no doubt about that, right?
Oh, of course it would have.
In the next episode of Alva Beach, Death at the Door, the blame game over who could have and should have saved Tom and Corey.
How long are they going to be? I said, well, they're telling half an hour. I said, I think they need to pull their finger out, because how many calls do they need?
A rare insight into the combative war of words between police and paramedics.
If the ambulance had gone in when they initially got the call, it would have been okay.
We take you inside an internal police probe with evidence that has never been made public until now.
Whose responsibility should it have been? Could it have been? What could have been done?
And if you thought your head was spinning already, wait until you hear what comes next.
And he said, the police have left out some key pieces of evidence. And I said, what would that be, your phone? And he said, no, they still got my phone. And I said, what's that then? And he said that the knife that they got is not the right knife.
Alva Beach, Death at the Door is a 9 podcasts and 60 minutes production. Written and presented by me, Adam Hegarty. The producer is Jess Lodge. Editing and sound design by Maddie White.